if someone has already decided that they are going to churn, it's too late to do anything. But if the marketing force knows that churn is going to happen, then they have a window and a time window where they can still act. So you can act on it, but you also get the insights.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. This episode is powered by J Ventures, a community-driven VC fund in Silicon Valley in partnership with Leumi Tech and sponsored by Hippo Insurance, Turing, Upwest Labs, and Hillel at Stanford. Data is eating the world by storm. Meet Zohar Bronfman, CEO and co-founder at Pecan. Zohar is an entrepreneur and CEO with a Ph.D. in Computational Cognitive Neuroscience and a Ph.D. in History and Philosophy of Science. His passion is enabling businesses to drive tangible value with AI. His expertise include analytics, AI, deep learning, and computational psychology, as well as a strong background in data science, statistical data analysis, and business analytics. Zohar Bronfman, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
It's my pleasure, Michael. I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you. I'm very excited to have you here. We have to start off with your two different PhDs. How does it happen that you have both a PhD in computational cognitive neuroscience and a PhD in the history and philosophy of science? How does that even work? And what is history and philosophy of science?
Yeah, so actually the two questions are related because at least from my perspective, I think the two PhDs are quite complementary. So I started learning in parallel both philosophy and cognitive neuroscience. And I felt that both fields are very interesting and have a lot to say also about the other field. And then I felt I want to understand better this aspect, and I want to understand better this aspect. I didn't want to let go any of those, so I did those two PhDs in parallel. History and philosophy of sciences and ideas basically means that we ask ourselves what are the main constructs of thinking that are applied again and again, what changes, not necessarily in the content of what people think at a certain point in time, but also in how they think. What are the methods they are doing, the structure, the form. It really helps to put things in perspective. People always think that now they have like the one version of the truth, and that they know specifically what is the kind of case. And if you look at it in a more historical perspective and in a more skeptical perspective, many times you realize that we know far little than what we think we know.
Right. And so, how did you actually go about doing these at the same time? These two PhDs?
Yep. At the same time, I split the week into half. Half of the week I was working on that, the other on the other. It sounds maybe crazy, but it's actually not. I think that when you are within the kind of zone of researching and experimenting and testing and writing and so on, then adding additional layer is far easier than doing it separately. So it was actually quite an amazing kind of experience.
That's amazing. And now I'm really excited to understand how this all plays into what you're doing today. A year ago, you came out of stealth with your Series A, right, from Dell and from S Capital, talking about, how do we provide businesses with a pretty much drag and drop solution to gain predictive insights into things that they might not have the capacity to do it themselves, right? So a lot of places now that have, specified data science units to answer specific questions like why do our customers churn or something like that. Well, not everybody can afford that and not everybody has the expertise for that. And we know that McKinsey, I believe, said that we're going to have a shortage of something about 500,000 data scientists in 2025 or something crazy like that. So obviously there's a huge market here. But Zohar, bring me up, a little bit, 30,000 feet in the air. What does the world of data-driven analysis look like? And why do we need a solution like Pecan for today's businesses?
Yeah, so I think we can start from the top here. We had revolutions with regards to data during the several last decades. So first companies started gathering data, then they started kind of putting it in place, looking at it in a very simplistic way. Then we had the BI revolution, where companies started like to dice their data, slice and dice their data, and kind of get a better understanding of the business dynamics that they have. BI became both a necessity and a commodity. So today, it's very hard to find an organization that's not running BI. And we believe, but we are obviously not the only ones, that the next evolution, the next step is going to be becoming AI driven. It's not enough just to understand what happened. You have to run more advanced forms of analysis, of analytics, that gives you kind of a direction or a hint towards what is going to happen. And like you said, doing this, crossing this chasm, right, moving from retrospective point of view to kind of a proactive or future-looking point of view is something that requires a lot of know-how, both know-how in terms of dealing with the data and know-how with understanding how to relate those statistical methods into the business necessities. What we found at Pecan and how the story here kind of unfolded is that, like you said, there are many data scientists out there, but the demand for data science, the demand for AI capabilities is 10 times larger. And that's our point of departure. We understood that this gap will never close through additional data scientists. And what we decided to do, and I'll explain why in a minute, is to basically help the so-called data analysts, business analysts. We wanted to help them cross this chasm. They wanted to help them moving from just doing BI into also doing AI. How did it happen? It's a very nice
just to clear
story,
the field, Zohar.
Yeah.
Just right before that story. So give me the the analysis of what is the difference between today. You have people working in companies doing as analysts doing BI, and then you have data scientists. What is really the core differences you see it? What is the leap that you're talking about from simply observing BI versus doing predictive analysis using data science?
Yeah. So there are two probably two different kind of aspects into moving from doing BI into AI. That traditionally you will have to go through a lot of training and a lot of kind of a learning curve moving from data analytics to machine learning and to data science. It will involve first and foremost transitioning from SQL, which is the basic tool of data analytics, from SQL to Python or R or other data science oriented languages. And the second thing, which is maybe even more important, but for sure under discussed, moving from a BI to an AI mindset in terms of how you look at the data. So when you bring forward data to a state where it's AI ready, it has to include many components that you don't necessarily do when you run BI. There are many terms for that. Some call it feature engineering, some call it AI structuring, but it's obviously very challenging, difficult, and you have to have a deep understanding of the know-how in predictive analytics so that you can do this data work that is AI looking.
Right. And so what is the actual challenge with this? Is it really just, is it the manpower? Is it that, companies have generally the same questions that they're asking? And so there's an opportunity here to actually go and consolidate this, this pattern behavior that a lot of companies are doing. What is really, because we're seeing a crazy shift right now with businesses that are making these leaps. Are they asking the same questions? Are they employing the same technologies?
Yeah, it's a good question because the answer, at least from our perspective, is that it's neither white nor black. It's not exactly the same. Every company has its own specific business dynamics, data dynamics, exact needs. So there is always a customized level of how you fit the AI algorithms to their problem. On the other hand, there are many commonalities. So it's not like starting from scratch. This was actually one of our realizations, that you can take one or two or several use cases that are very important, that are very close to the business value, and you can template them. You can help the users walk through these use cases and then enjoy the commonalities, but still have enough flexibility so that they can tailor it to their specific company's needs.
Right. So you're talking about, common things like churn, or how do we get people in e-commerce to spend more time or to add more items to the cart? And a lot of these things that, are, on one hand, we can generalize them in a sentence to pretty much every e-commerce, website or company. At the same time, every e-commerce company will have their own specific use case of how they want it done and how does their data look and what is the pipeline that they're using, right? And so that is, so the black and white are sort of like the questions, but then how do you actually want to go and employ those questions with solutions? That's where you need the customization, right?
Exactly.
So what's actually happening today with Pecan, and how do you actually go about, introducing this to the market? Is it easy to explain to companies like, hey, listen, we have these tools to give you better predictive analysis, we can transition you from BI to AI, or are you getting some resistance for that?
So I have to say, quite surprisingly, obviously there's always healthy skepticism, and when you bring forward something new, people always look at it and try to understand whether it's real, how good it is, and so on and so forth. But I have to say, touch wood, we are quite fortunate to be able to resonate with with our partners, prospects, and so on and so forth. I think there's a very healthy combination between use cases that people already understand they need, that people understand they want, and also the pain of not having enough data science resources, which is very evident. These are like things that we don't need to educate the market, and then we let the product talk for itself. I think the greatest kind of thing that we bring to the world is that data analysts have a sincere desire in moving into the next step. They are actively trying today through courses, through academic degrees, through experience in the companies, working with friends. They are trying to find ways in how can I drive more advanced analytics? How can I move from BI to AI? And in that regard, we have a very strong pull from the market because the market is there. It's now a question of the technologies that will enable it. And this is what we are racing against, obviously.
So do you see a future where you have companies more employing these technologies that are enabling current workforce to conduct more thorough, analysis, or do you see really investing more in data scientists, or is it some sort of combination of both, where on one hand you do need your internal data scientists to solve the meaningful questions, but you can also use solutions like Pecan AI to solve for the more common questions that others might also have that same use case?
So I think absolutely option two, data scientists will always be, I think, extremely important for organizations. And when you can hire enough data scientists, and when you can employ enough proficient data science expertise on core use cases that are very important for your business, it is probably the right thing to do. The thing is that it will ever just increase the fact that organizations have hundreds of questions, hundreds of avenues of advanced analytics that they need to explore and need to kind of solve, they will never have enough data science capabilities. And then it will be a question of resource allocation. Here I'm taking this group of data scientists. Here I'm taking this group of data analysts. Sometimes I can cross talk between them. That will become the natural evolution of how data science is being done in organizations, for sure.
Right. So one of the things that I enjoyed most was studying the case studies that you showed on the website of how you're actually going about, and with sometimes only a few hours of dedicated time, you're able to create some pretty impressive changes in the way that an organization communicates with its users or makes decisions on how to upsell or how to show different things to the users. Can you share with me a few of those case studies just to get a perspective of what is possible when you do make that leap from BI to AI, even with the software like Pecan AI?
Sure. So I think you gave kind of a quick example earlier. Churn is an example that is very easy to follow. And like you said, in direct to consumer or in digital commerce or environments like that, we have a lot of customers, a lot of users that have a journey. This journey has all of the data footprints stored. You have the data in your warehouse. You analyze it as a BI specialist. You provide insights. Look, after 11 sessions, the user decides that he or she are not going to buy and they churn. But if you start digesting the data through a data science oriented platform, what you will be able to achieve is that even before things happen, you can actually see that, for example, this user is very likely to churn, for example, because of price. So you also get the kind of underlying reason or factor that contributed to the prediction. And the other user, even if they have the same likelihood to churn, are going to churn because of customer service, just as an example. Right. So what you can get out of that are several layers of treatment. First of all, you can devise a very tailored, a very personalized action to kind of preempt churn before it happens. Because if someone has already decided that they are going to churn, it's too late to do anything. But if the marketing force knows that churn is going to happen, then they have a window and a time window where they can still act. So you can act on it, but you also get the insights that are different from the BI insights because they are forward looking. So the insights can guide you into what's the issues with the product, what is the issue with the user journey, what are the segments or the micro segments that quit for different reasons. And eventually what we see in our cases, in our real cases, are sometimes reduction of more than 20% in churn rates, which is, it's strategic. This is like CEO stuff that I like seeing these slides and are saying, I don't believe it. We are so happy to have these cases. And obviously, we are continuing to build those day after day.
I think one of the most impressive things that I'm gathering from this, and I've seen it firsthand, in the industry, is that at the end we're talking about a lot of low hanging fruits, right? You have a lot of these. We're at the point where companies are now beginning to understand that data collection is the beginning. So pretty much every company is using enough of these ready-made tools, the analytics tools, to be collecting the right data. And now they're really, like you're saying, the evolution is to take that and go from BI to AI. And it's pretty fascinating how, you have some things that are just low-hanging fruits that, by employing, relatively, linear, simple models, you can actually do some really great predictive analysis. And like you mentioned at the end, it's all about, at the end, the personalization. It's not about, a one size fits all, but it's about, how do you make it personalized flow and space for every customer so that as a company how to allocate your resources. If you have 1,000 leads from today, how do you know which ones to call back? How do you know which ones to prioritize? How do you know which ones you're probably not going to get in the first place? So you should maybe not even worry, or maybe even advise them for trust not to move on with the purchase. So I think it's just It's just fascinating what you guys are doing. I love data-driven problems, and I think that companies that solve this on an industry-wide level are just fascinating. And so thank you so much for joining me today. It was really, really great. Zohar,
Thank you,
before we leave, I
Michael.
have to ask you the most important question. But actually, I have two important questions. First of all, how does one walk for so many kilometers in the day? How is that possible?
So yeah, I'll say a word about that because maybe it will help others try and do that as well. During the COVID area, because we had so much time spent sitting in front of the computer, I decided that every call, every session, every meeting that I can take walking, I'll do it walking. And first of all, it's been an amazing decision, one of the best decisions I ever made. I've been taking so many calls walking. It's a tremendous help to me to be concentrated and kind of motivated, invigorated. So that's an amazing. And I've been averaging quite a lot of miles, 25 miles a day roughly. So it's very much recommended. Very much recommended.
Unbelievable. It kind of reminds me of the Imitation Game, I have to say, just a little bit. A lot of the scenes of touring running, but we'll leave that comparison for another time. Zohar, the most important question: 3 words that you would use to describe yourself.
Oh, 3 words to describe myself. I think it's a hard question to reduce one's entire being into 3 words. I would say determined, creative, builder.
I love it. Zohar, toda rabba. Thank you very, very much. Best of luck with Pecan.
Thanks,
I know that it's just the start of a long journey, but it's already making a huge impact. And thank you very much.
One step at a time.
Stay safe and stay healthy.
All the best.